I knew nothing about my German heritage until 1978. I knew my father was from New York. He was in the military in World War II in the Panama Canal Zone and was a CPA. He transitioned out of the Army into the IRS. He met my mother at a USO dance in the Grandy Ballroom in Detroit, and they were married in October 1945. I graduated from the University of Michigan. I had German classes at Etzel Ford High School and Henry Ford College. In 1978, by sheer coincidence, one of our family members from across the sea was in Saginaw working for Siemens. He was an electrical engineer. He flew from Saginaw to Detroit and looked in a phone book and saw my dad's name, Walter George Bankwitz. It's a very uncommon name, so he knew we must be related. He sent us a wonderful letter inviting us to enjoy our family heritage. By that time, my dad had died in '73, so he knew nothing of this. In '78, my brother corresponded with him. That's Kenneth George Bankwitz. And we were found to be the 17th generation of the family name, which began in Germany in Turigula. It's one of the 16 states of the German Federal Republic. The family name began with Hans Veit Bankwitz in 1440, and he had several sons, and it continued until Karl Hermann Bankwitz, which was my great-grandfather, decided to immigrate to the United States. He was a painter, and he came in 1888, and his wife and 3 children, her name was Maria, came in 1889. My grandfather was 3 months and 3 weeks old when they sailed from Bremen to the port of New York. My great-grandfather became a naturalized citizen of the U.S. in 1904. His son, Alfred Walter Bankwitz, was my grandfather. My grandfather was a commercial painter in New York City and had a very dangerous job. He was on scaffolds and theaters and in public buildings. When my dad graduated from high school in 1930, my grandfather took him aside to Manhattan, and there was a school of accountants. It was called Pace Institute. And he said, "Walter, you're not going to die and fall off a scaffold like I would be prone to do. You're my only son, I want to protect you. So I'm going to pay your first term at Pace Institute, and you will become an accountant." For 9 years, my father went to night school and worked on the Pennsylvania Railroad in a dining car during the day. One of the legacies of that was when my mother married my father. Her name was Edith Ann Bankwitz. Her maiden name was Green. She never had to cook a meal during their entire married life. They settled in Dearborn, and I grew up going to Dearborn schools, as I mentioned earlier. I went to Henry Ford Elementary. The most famous city in the province or the state of Turigula is Weimar, and that's the home of Schiller and Goethe, the famous poet. We very much enjoyed our family history given to us by Jürgen Bankwitz. Again, that was my distant cousin. He and his wife Helga live in the province of Bavaria, about 20 miles south of Nuremberg, in the city of Erlangen. His story was even more fantastic than mine. One day in 1945, he and his mother left the home in February 1945 in Dresden. When they came home, it was firebombed. They then went to their ancestral farm in Leingerhofen, and the Russians moved in and shot the owner of the farm, which was Jurgen's uncle. They made their way to Frankfurt, where Jurgen studied electrical engineering and got a job at Siemens. He graciously agreed to meet with us 5 years ago at his home with his wife Helga. And that's my story.